Hello, Lovelace. Welcome to today's wider curriculum lesson and the final lesson in our topic of British invaders. So this is the last lesson when we look at our Vikings and Anglo-Saxons history. And I thought we'd finish with an incredible piece of artwork and an incredible historical document as well. Some of you may have heard of it, but today we're going to be looking at the Bayeux Tapestry. And your LO for today is, can I recreate a scene from the Bayeux Tapestry? Now, the Bayeux Tapestry is an embroidery. So this is a piece of fabric with images sewn into it. And it's nearly 70 meters long. It is massive, 70 meters long and 50 centimeters high. I mean, the image I've got on the screen now really doesn't do it justice. I mean, there's no way to see the whole thing in one picture. It is so big. Now, as I say, it's embroidered onto cloth. So that means that every single image you can see, every mark made on the cloth is a stitch. Someone with a needle and thread has sewn each and every image. I'm saying someone, it'll be a lot of someones. So a large group of craftsmen and craftswomen who've put this together. And the idea behind the Bayeux Tapestry is it shows the events that led up to and just following the Battle of Hastings and the invasion by William, Duke of Normandy. So it's a story of what we've been talking about in the last couple of lessons. Now, the tapestry is annotated. Now, annotated means notes written onto something. Now, these aren't notes, but they are sort of descriptions of what's going on in each scene. But the tapestry is annotated in Latin. Now, Latin's an old language, which we don't really use much anymore. If you go into animal sciences, or if you go into horticulture and plants and things like that, then you might learn some Latin names of animals or flowers and plants. But generally speaking, Latin isn't really used much today. But the tapestry itself is on display. You can go and see it outside of lockdown, obviously, but you can go and see it in Bayeux, which is a town in Normandy. And it's on display in a museum called the Musée de la Tapissière de Bayeux. Okay, so if you're ever in northern France, in Normandy, maybe you get the opportunity to pop in and see the Bayeux Tapestry. It is well worth a look. Okay? I saw a recreation. I've not seen the real thing, but I saw a copy of one when it visited Reading. So I can appreciate just how impressive it is. But if you ever get the chance, please do go and visit, go and have a look. So the tapestry itself is regarded as one of the greatest examples of Anglo-Saxon art. And even though it was William, who was a Norman, who commissioned it, who asked for it to be made, it was Anglo-Saxon craftspeople who actually put it together. But as well as being a fantastic piece of artwork, it's also a really important historical document because it details the events from Edward the Confessor's death right the way through to William the Conqueror's coronation. So all the bits in between, including Harold Godwinson and the Battle of Hastings. So here's one of the scenes. In fact, this is the very first scene on the Bayeux Tapestry. And we can see we've got a king sitting on his throne. Now, we know this is Edward because it actually says Edward above it. And we know it's King Edward because of this word here, rex. The Latin word rex means king. Okay? And you might have come across the word rex again if you're interested in dinosaurs. Obviously, the Tyrannosaurus rex, the king of the dinosaurs. Okay, so we've got Edward and Rex. So this is King Edward on his throne, talking to one of his advisors or maybe a messenger, but discussing something with these two characters next to him. Now, the borders, top and bottom of the tapestry, on its full length, are generally filled with animals or scenes from the countryside. And occasionally you'll see some agricultural, some farming scenes as well. But the borders are all quite peaceful, whereas the middle of the tapestry, that's full of the battle scenes and the actual events that were taking place. But the borders, you can see here, we've got a couple of horses, we've got birds, we've got, I think that's a lion, a goat, and various other animals. Okay, but the borders are full of animals, farming scenes, or general scenes from the countryside. One thing that appears in the border, though, is this image here. And anyone that's interested in space might have heard of Halley's Comet. Now, Halley's Comet is, well, it's a comet, surprise, surprise, that is orbiting our solar system. And roughly every 75 years, it's close enough to Earth that we can see it. And this was included in the Bayeux Tapestry. And it is believed that Halley's Comet actually passed by the atmosphere of Earth during the Norman invasion. And so it was included in the tapestry itself because it was seen by people at that time. Okay. So as well as the Norman invasion, as well as the Battle of Hastings, we've also got some scientific history with a representation of Halley's Comet. Now, in this scene, we've got the coronation of Harold Godwinson. So remember, Edward passed away, and the Witan made that decision that Harold would be their new king. He was an earl, he was a powerful nobleman, he was also leader of the armies and popular amongst the people. So it seemed, on the face of it, to be quite a sensible choice. I know from our tapestry uploads, a lot of you chose Harold Godwinson as your king out of those four. I think Harold was certainly the most popular. We had a couple of votes for some of the others, but Harold seemed to be the most popular with you as well as with the Witan. Okay, but here's his coronation. And you can see there are 3 items that make up the coronation set. We've got the crown itself, we've got an orb, and we've got a mitre. Now, the mitre is a ceremonial pole. We'll say the stick there is carried, the orb, and the crown. All of these things are part of what we call the crown jewels. And the current crown jewels sit in the Tower of London, and we use for Queen Elizabeth II's coronation as well. So, moving down the tapestry, word reaches William in Normandy that Harold has taken the throne. Now, we know he wouldn't have been too impressed with that because he felt he had the strongest claim to be the new king. So he wasn't impressed that Harold had taken the throne. And so he orders his builders to construct 700 ships to carry his army across the Channel to England. And you can quite clearly see the shipbuilders, these craftsmen, shaping the boats, creating these boats, and then them being towed to the Channel, ready to be launched and to set sail. Okay, so some really good images there of the boats themselves being constructed, ready for battle. Then we get to the Battle of Hastings itself. And again, even though the images are quite naive, they're almost cartoony in their style, although we have to keep reminding ourselves that these have been sewn. Every single mark you can see is a stitch. So incredible craftsmanship. But even though the characters look quite cartoony, there's still enough detail for us to learn a little bit of history from it. We can see the types of weapons that were used. We can see this upside down teardrop shaped shield. We can see the axes. We can see the spears. In parts of the tapestry, we can see the arrows being used. We can see swords. We can see the helmets with the nose guards. We can see the chainmail. So all of these things just reinforce the historical information that we gather through archaeology and so on. So all these things together, all this evidence together, helps us paint a really, really clear picture of what things were like. Within this scene, we can see that a number of the soldiers would have been on foot, but equally, a lot of them would have been on horseback. But we can also see, quite sadly, the sheer level of death that would take place in any battle of this type. And the whole tapestry is littered with dead bodies, because that is unfortunately the reality of war. Now, this scene, I've just highlighted one part of it, because it's just this character that we want to look at. And here we can see Harold Godwinson. And we know it's Harold because behind him, we've got the word Harold. And they've actually spaced the letters to allow the head to fit. So I think the lettering came afterwards. So they created the figure and then put the lettering afterwards. So we've got the gap between the O and the L, and then a gap between the L and the D. But it still says, Harold, and it says Rex, which, remember, that means king. Okay, so we've got King Harold, and we've got him being killed with an arrow to the eye. Now, that's a famous scene, as regards, during the battle, it is the death of the current king, of Harold. Now, but historians don't actually believe that he died with an arrow in his eye. They feel it's more likely that was symbolic. It showed that he was killed, but it's more likely he was just killed with a sword blow or a spear. The idea of an arrow in the eye, historians don't feel is particularly accurate. Now, as I said, the Bayeux Tapestry is a massive piece of work, 70 meters long, and it actually contains hundreds of individual animals and characters. And here are just some numbers which might surprise you. There are 626 different people, different characters within the tapestry itself. So that's soldiers, that's kings, that's advisors, that's servants, all the different people that appeared in that story, in that series of events. There's 174 horses, 55 dogs, and countless other animals and birds. It also has 37 ships have been sown, 49 trees, and 37 buildings. So you can see the amount of time and effort and work that's gone into this piece of art is quite incredible. But now we get on to your task. In fact, it's twofold. There's two bits to this task, but I really do hope you enjoy both of them. I want you to imagine for a moment, and I don't think it's too difficult to imagine, that the Bayeux Tapestry was actually drawn rather than embroidered onto material. I am not going to ask you to sew anything, don't panic. But I would like you to try and draw a scene from the Bayeux Tapestry. I want you to try and use the same style of artwork. By that I mean these quite simplistic drawings. They are more than stickmen. Stickmen is not good enough. I expect a lot more from a Year 5 class. But they are still quite cartoony in their style. But even then, there's still enough detail for us to understand exactly what's going on. We can clearly make out the axe. We can clearly make out the chainmail in his armor, the shape of the shield. We can see the helmet and the nose guard, even though the face is pretty basic. On this bowman, on this archer, again, we can clearly see the chainmail and the helmet. We can see how he's got the two fingers drawing back the bow. We can see the quiver on his belt to hold the arrows. Okay. So even though they are pretty simple drawings, they are precise enough for us to learn something about what's going on. Now, once you've figured out how to draw one soldier, then try and put them together into a small scene, small battle scene. Have some fun with this. Your drawings, please do them in pencil. If you want to add a little bit of color, that would be great. But don't get carried away with the color. I'm far more interested in your pencil drawings and your figure shapes. The second part of today's task is simply to watch a short video. Within the description, there is a video link, and it's going to take you to a piece of work done by a company called Potion Project. And what they did was they examined the entire length of the Bayeux Tapestry, and then they animated it. Using some computer trickery, they were able to get some of the characters to move. And they also translated the Latin into English so that you can actually, as you're working along, you can read what each scene represents. Now, the video is only 4 minutes long, but it's brilliantly made and well worth a look. Okay, so those are your 2 tasks for today. Can you draw me a scene using the same style of artwork, of character that you'd see in the Bayeux Tapestry? And can you please watch the 4-minute video from the link in the description? Okay, but that's the end of today. In fact, that's the end of this topic. I really hope you've enjoyed it. I've read some wonderful reports. I've seen some really, really nice pieces of work, from longships being built to salt dough brooches, all sorts of wonderful things. But this is our last lesson on this topic. So that's the end of today. As usual, please look after yourself, guys. Please take care of those around you and stay safe. And I will see you all very soon.